Afternoon, Madfest. Great to be here. Good to see so many faces. How are you all holding up? Good, good, good. Cool. Right, my name's Maria. I work for a company called Epsilon. We have a stand in I think it's called the Mad Marquee. It's carnival themed. We've opted for a carnival theme this year in keeping with the Madfest vibe of Be Less Boring. So on that topic, we're going to just see how many tenuous links I can make to that over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. Starting, of course, with our topic, which is I want to take a look at the challenges with traditional digital media buy-in and to explain why I think retail media, for those that can really nail the execution, and that means evolving beyond just kind of your on-site sponsored products, for those that can do that and really get it right, why I think retail media can become the main event on a media plan and not just the sideshow. Quick introduction to who we are first. So Epsilon represents the coming together of various different data, MarTech, AdTech businesses. So some might recognize us for being a CRM business, which is actually where we started out more than 50 years ago. Personalized loyalty, email marketing technology, so really giving us a good understanding of what drives more emotional connections with consumers and more loyal behavior. Some might recognize the name Yieldify, which is an on-site personalization tool. Others may even remember the name Conversant, which is an identity-based one-to-one digital media platform, and it's that identity that forms the backbone of our business today, underpinning all of our solutions. And given that this is the retail media stage, hopefully some will remember the name CitrusAd, which is an on-site retail media platform. Now, all of those solutions sit underneath the one big top that is Publicis Group. See what I did there? Let's hope they get better than that. But that's significant because it not only means that we're well versed in understanding what's important to retailers at the different stages of their retail media journey, but also crucially what's important to brands when they're trying to overcome and fulfill their marketing challenges. So we really sit between this fabulous intersection between digital media, personalization, loyalty, and retail media, and it means that we can tap into the breadth of experience and relationships that Publicis has to create unique opportunities that bring speed to value for both brands and retailers. So just wanted to get a sense from those of you listening, who's come from a marketing, media planning background? Anyone here? Nice. So you'll be very familiar with our tightrope walker, the 60-40 principle, the perfect balance of marketing investment into brand and performance, or as I like to call it, marketing's version of a healthy diet, bit of cake, bit of kale. And I think for kind of large D2C brands, it's relatively easy to invest that rule into investment strategies. But as we move over to non-D2C, we start to see a bigger shift towards branding, and then kind of for smaller D2C brands, or perhaps those are even larger ones that are a little bit more under pressure from a business performance perspective, we start to see a much larger skew towards performance-based activations. Now, I think whatever that balance looks like as it differs from brand to brand, the age-old argument about what it should look like is going to be around for a while. And the analogy that I'm going to use today is the ticket booth argument. So that's where brand wants to drive awareness to sell tickets for tomorrow, but performance, they want to sell all the tickets right here, right now, and chuck in a free hat at the same time. And the difference between the flashing lights outside the carnival doors and the billboards and the posters up and around town. And it's why we see marcom teams and ecom teams often at loggerheads, not necessarily working in silos, when the reality is brand and performance need to find a way of showing up together, of understanding what their collective input is. Otherwise, you just end up with a tent half full and nothing but a media bill to show for it. So just looking at these in a little bit more detail, performance media are sharpshooter. These guys, they are armed with Google Analytics. They are armed with last click attribution. It is their job to hunt you down like you owe them money. And 9 times out of 10, because they're using a measurement framework that's been built for search, we see lion's share of budget going into search, whereas branding, much more of a carnival midway. Spend varies from channel to channel, and it's either about environment or it's about audience, i.e. the data behind the audience. And if there is something that we have come to obsess about in media planning, it is the data. So much so that I think a lot of the time we forget to even question where it's come from, how is it collected, how often is it refreshed, what's the sample size. I think a lot of the time we're happy to just slap a label on it that says lookalike audience and just pray that it behaves like a real person. And so that brings me on to my favourite part of Carnival, which is the house of mirrors, the ad tech and the data itself, or as I like to call it, who and what the internet thinks I am. So here I am, 44, living my best life, semi-detached house in Weybridge with my 2 cats and my partner, in that order, who's wearing a very questionable coloured orange shirt, I would say there. When I look at this, what I really think is, could I be living a better version of myself? Is there a better version of me that even I would be jealous of? What does my data footprint tell me? So I went onto my Google profile, checked it out, and for the large part, pretty accurate. Gender, age, language, household status, tick, tick, tick. Married, still waiting, 10 years. I'm not bitter. Well, congratulate the lucky guy anyway. But that's no biggie, right? Married, not married, we've been together a long time. Signet Jewelers, however, is a client of ours. That's H. Samuel and Ernest Jones. That would put me out of contention for one of their biggest marketing pushes, which is, of course, engagement rings. So perhaps missed opportunity there. Then we move over to employer, small employer. Epsilon's got 8,000 people. Publicis, last time I checked, has about 100,000 people. So unless I missed some company announcements along the way, fingers crossed I didn't, I think we could say that's off. And then the last one, completely off the charts, parents to toddlers, no way, never happening. I like my holidays too much. I then had a look at my interests, so topics that Google labels me with, probably because of my browsing behaviours. What do we see? Satellite TVs, car parts, vacuum cleaners, fishing. No disrespect to anybody here who is mad crazy about these things, but this is not the better version of myself that I had anticipated for. But I could probably hazard a guess as why Google thinks I'm interested in these things if I had to think about it. Satellite TV, Sky is a client of ours. QuickFit is a client of ours. So the point is not to pick holes in contextual browsing data. We use it at Epsilon. We have a huge publisher network. It's valuable. It gives us a little bit of insight into who somebody is. But on its own, it's not a true reflection of who somebody is. I might browse £5 million houses, but the reality is I can't afford one. That, however, just for the record, is a profile I can get on board with, right? So data is a challenge for our marketers. Also, the fact that digital media, a lot of it is still delivered using third-party cookies, which can often leave you talking to more people than you actually are because they don't represent real people. And then on top of that, we're still hearing that fraud is prevalent in our industry. A lot of articles about that recently, particularly in nascent channels like connected TV. So a lot of the time, our marketers aren't even talking to real people at all. So enough sometimes, our marketers' funnel is nothing more than a helter-skelter of dizzy head scratchers, questions that remain unanswered, where there is this obsession with the lower funnel, questions around incrementality, not being able to take credit for sales that I can't see because they happened offline or in cookieless environments. You've then got this messy middle, this mysterious wasteland that marketers look at like it's Area 51. Not really sure what to do in there. How do I identify these people? And then you've got the upper funnel, blasting awareness across 15 platforms, targeting the same individual across 147 times across 6 apps in their smart fridge. No understanding of whether I'm using the right data. Am I targeting existing customers? Am I targeting new customers? Are they even real people? Not being able to follow the same person, connecting brand and performance up, which is why we see this silo. So it's no surprise, therefore, that our marketers then turn towards our walled gardens, our illusionists, the friend and foe on every media plan. 60 to 70% of spend now going to these platforms. Why? Because they have some of the things that solve some of those challenges. They have authenticated identity, the ability to recognize the consumer at every single touch point, user level frequency capping, efficiency in delivery, massive scale that brings tons and tons of rich real-time data for understanding who the audience is, slick UIs, with seamless activation, all wrapped up in closed-loop measurement. But, and it is a big but, as demand continues to grow for these platforms, they continue to increase the restrictions that they have around that relationship with the consumer, as well as the costs involved in using them. We saw search costs go up by 30% last year, yet CPAs remain flat. On top of that, they decrease the transparency into performance, and all of the customer service levels that marketers love, the rich, actionable insights, that becomes less and less, and you can't measure off platform. So there's no omnichannel measurement. So that leaves an opportunity on the table for our retailers. It leaves the door open, because if retailers want to if they want to earn their slice of ticket sales, they're going to have to do more than just simply stick an ad on a product page and call it a day. They're going to have to build the things that our marketers love about the walled gardens into their ecosystems, connected identity, scalable data and activation, and then they're going to potentially offer some of the things that the walled gardens don't, like omnichannel measurement, on and offline, high levels of service, custom analytics, help them facilitate partnerships that they wouldn't have got on their own. Because retailers, they have the ingredients to become the magician too. So basically, if you think about a retailer, they have plenty of transactional data. So they have till receipts, loyalty card pings, they've got till flashes, they've got Sandra in R5 buying a pineapple and a cordless drill on a Sunday morning. They've got everything that is needed to actually understand who the customer really is. So I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, my partner and I, we did that thing that couples do when they've suffered a head injury. We moved in with my parents and did a full house renovation. One of those, we'll be out in 6 months, 18 months later we emerged, physically and emotionally altered. Why? Because my dad, he is a 75-year-old Italian man named Alfonso. He believes in the 3 F's in life: family, football, feeding you pasta, bread and wine until you can't move. After month 6, I think my genes had completely given up. Month 8, my partner was actually looking forward to his daily Italian version of Deal or No Deal, despite not talking the language. And I think, like any optimistic couple, we started out our journey with a vision, a grand vision. Not necessarily a budget, but a vision. You know, we had Pinterest boards full of real kitchen marble worktops and Jerusalem limestone tiles, and Farrow and Bull, we had mood boards with, you know, elephant's freckle, mole's breath, all of these really fancy names for paints. But then the quotes came in, and soon enough, the real Carrara marble, that was switched out for marble effect. The Jerusalem limestone was just limestone printed porcelain, because that's what normal people have, porcelain tiles. And as for Farrow and Bull, well, let's just say we got to know the guy on the colour matching counter at B&Q very well. Because the truth is that retailers, you can browse, what you browse is basically the fantasy. What you pin, or your social data, is the projection that your friends see. But what you buy is the reality, because ultimately you are what you buy as well as what you eat, unless you're this guy, because I've seen him tuck away all the carbs and not put on a single pound. You can scroll aspirational, you can pin aspirational, but you buy real, and that's the power of retail data. Retailers knew exactly what I was doing. John Lewis, B&Q, they had me down. They watched the receipts, they saw the returns. John Lewis, they know that I impulse buy fashion and gifting in Westfield on the way home from work. They also know that I buy homeware, bedding, TVs, all of that stuff that make my new house look good online in my pajamas while probably questioning my life choices. B&Q, they saw every DIY panic we had. Shopping in store near our house, shopping in store near my parents' house, deliveries coming to both addresses, skirting boards, fire doors, test paints flying in all directions like we were Banksy with commitment issues. They didn't need to guess. They knew that this woman is in the renovation trenches. And so retailers have the data. The real question is how can they enable brands to maximize value from it as they move away from point of purchase from on-site to off-site, into the open web, for example? How can they build the best parts of the walled gardens into their systems to offer addressable, scalable reach of their customers with omnichannel measurement across platforms, across channels, across the funnel, where they can drive that synergy? And it really starts with maximizing consent of your first-party data. And there are a number of ways of which to do that, but loyalty programs are by far the most effective, because if designed with clout, they come with a clear value exchange with the customer that drives up frequency of purchase, as well as capturing that all-important consent. And with driving up LTV, it's important to remember that LTV has now evolved. It's about incremental sales from your customers, but it's also about the ability to now monetize the customer. So retailers are really going to have to look after their most valuable customers with personalized loyalty programs if they are going to want to protect their retail media profits in the future. The other thing about loyalty, which is the one up on walled gardens, is it enables you to measure and track in-store purchases against an individual customer, which now means our retailers can offer omnichannel measurement on and offline if they can activate the offline loyalty card data at scale. Next is to bolster the understanding of the consumer outside of the retailer's universe with additional data sources, third-party data, demographic, psychographic, browsing, contextual, but also second-party data. So I think there's going to come a time in the future when we're probably going to see some retailers join forces to develop more scale in their offering, to make them more competitive with the likes of Tesco's and Amazon. And data clean rooms is a way for publishers, brands, retailers to share their first-party anonymized data in a privacy-safe way without the reliance on third-party cookies. And it's worth mentioning at this point, whilst most data clean rooms are kind of empty boxes that just facilitate that, Epsilon's clean room comes preloaded with third-party data sources, demographic, psychographic, all of that juicy stuff, straight out of the gate for speed to value straight away. Then we have retailers that, when they're building this new business, they have to think about the ad tech that they're working with. They have to aim for scalable activation of their traffic and their data, both on-site and off-site. And that's why end-to-end technology and scale come hand in hand, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. But it also means that retailers really need to think long and hard about who they're partnering. Retail media is evolving at such a pace. We're going to see new players entering the marketplace every single day, like CDPs, like DSPs. That's what happened. So it's absolutely essential when they build a new business revenue stream, that they're working with a partner that is trusted, that is experienced, but also comes with the financial backing to innovate at the same pace of the market, but also at the pace of the business. And that's where Publicis obviously comes in for us. Lastly is to ensure that they've got a clear demand gen strategy. This isn't just about understanding what that demand gen strategy looks like, but it's about the retailer understanding what their needs are. Not every retailer is at the same stage of maturity. Some will need to outsource it, some will look to in-house it, some will want a hybrid model. And it's not to say it remains static. You want to work, if you're outsourcing it, you want to work with a partner that is going to be flexible and is going to evolve again with what your proposition is, ensuring that the partners that you do partner with, that they're well connected across agencies, they're well connected across brands, they have media sales experience, so they understand what marketers love, they understand what they expect to see from service levels, but also from custom analytics and stuff like that. Lastly, what the walled gardens have absolutely nailed, this connected identity, the ability to recognize the consumer at every single touch point, in a way that is scalable, in a way that is accurate, and in a way that is persistent, because ultimately that is what drives results. It's what enables me to target people accurately, more efficiently. It's what enables me to target enough people efficiently. And it's what enables me to stay connected to the same individual over time in a way that drives change in behavior, in a way that enables me to connect my upper funnel activations to my lower funnel activations. But as we know, connected identity, never easy to connect data to technology. It's the hardest magic trick of all. So, and the reason for that is as you connect your CRM to your CDP to a data onboarder to a DSP, I feel like I'm rapping. Like literally, it's the most hardest thing to do because at every single sync point, you get a loss of data of about 30%, which is why we're always hearing about an industry hampered by low match and activation rates when it comes to activating first-party data. Right, so retailers need to think long and hard, how are they going to get the scale when they come to match their first-party data into platforms? None of these platforms have the same understanding of the consumer. They use different identifiers. Some use email addresses, some use third-party cookies, some use first-party cookies. So ask yourself, what is your match rate into environments like the open web? What is your match rate into environments like connected TV and the emerging channels like SVOD and audio and digital out of home? How are you going to achieve that? Because the market's going to evolve and you don't want to get left behind. This brings me on to the ringmaster, Epsilon's approach to identity and why it's different to the rest of the market. So the way that the rest of the market approaches identity is usually using a combination of probabilistic inferred signals. Now we saw with contextual browsing signals, that's inferred signals. We saw how inaccurate that can be sometimes, right? So using probabilistic inferred signals with hashed email addresses. Now I have 3 personal email addresses and 2 work ones. So that you can see why using hashed emails as the primary anchor to your ID can come at the cost of accuracy, can again leave you thinking you're talking to more people than you actually are, but it can also throttle scale as well because you're trying to connect an email address over here to a different email address over there, right? The difference is Epsilon approaches identity in end-to-end technology, so we negate the need to sync data across platforms, which gives us scale straight out the gate. But our identity is rooted in name and address, of which people tend to have only one. So highly, highly accurate. And it's also built on first-party identifiers, which gives us the persistency and recognition of an individual over time. Oh, so what that looks like, we have 36 million core IDs in the UK. So core IDs representing 60 to 70% of the UK online adult population. Each of those IDs has 5 to 6 first-party touchpoints, not third-party cookies. That gives us that persistency and recognition, the longevity and connection needed to drive change in behaviour. 96% cross-device accuracy is verified by Comscore, meaning that we're highly accurate, which is why the name and address is so important. And then 50 to 80% match rates into environments, including the open web, where it's typically a lot harder when matching retailers' 2-year historical file. So that's huge. Imagine being able to reach, understand, identify exactly who those customers are to that level of scale. From there, in our end-to-end platform, it means that we have identity underpinning all of our solutions, from loyalty to data clean rooms, rich understanding of the consumer, for audience modeling, the ability to activate in almost any environment, and the ability to measure short-term metrics and long-term impact like lifetime value, the ability to connect the upper funnel to the lower funnel to know what the synergy is, all underpinned by our media sales team that are dotted around this room. I can see their faces, who are experienced, most importantly flexible, and backed by publicists for financial backing. Thank you, it's been a blast.